This next proposal deals with an institutional day off policy. So for those of you who've been around in the NAI for a while, you know that it's been an ongoing topic of conversation about the potential of a day off per week policy that would give student athletes a day off from athletic competition or participation. Our membership has not been able to settle on one singular approach that could apply to everyone of how exactly that would be defined and handled. So the sponsors of this proposal are taking a different approach to a similar idea, and instead saying the requirement under this proposal would be that each institution have such a policy, but the specifics of that policy, so what is defined as athletic participation, how do you account for things that aren't necessarily competition related but are adjacent or that are part of a student's status as a student athlete but not necessarily competition related, things like travel or study halls or those sorts of things, whether or not they count towards the day off. All of those sorts of intricacies would be up to each institution to determine as it determines its own institutional policy. The requirements within this bylaws proposal about what must be included in your policy are limited to these following things. The first is that each policy must be included in the student athlete handbook that's provided to student athletes and must also be published on the institution's website, the point being that it's readily available and transparent. Also, it says that within each policy, it must be clearly identified what the process is or who the point of contact is if there is an alleged violation of that institutional policy. So in other words, if a student athlete or a coach or a parent or an administrator feels like that institutional policy is not being followed, the sponsors want it to be really clear how that individual is able to reach out and report that concern. Beyond that, the requirement about specifics is that each institution can determine those for themselves and simply that each institution have such a policy.